to Wirecast in the Wild. I'm Greg, and we've got Matt hiding in the background. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hello.
Hello. So, again, we come here once a week to go and chat about all things Wirecast, talking about things that we see that are interesting, whether it be ideas or fixes. Someone might be talking about something in the forum, and we'll come and demo some of those things. Today, we're going to have a look at a number of things, including we're going to start with the release notes, and we're going to have a look at some pro audio and a few other things. They're on the screen there at the moment. My Rendezvous update is very, very slow, unfortunately, so I can't see it. Matt, can you read them out for me?
Absolutely. So there's release notes. There is the Hacking Rendezvous for 1080p. There is also Apple H.264 with the spikes that people have been seeing. And we're talking about a bit of audio stuff with some Wirecast audio, pro audio things. So, yeah.
I'm excited about the Hacking Rendezvous. We did a really, really cool test on that, and we'll come to that later. Also, one other quick thing. There was a guy who was posting in the forums about Skype audio, about how that works and how you can make it work better without having these weird echo effects. We'll briefly cover that during the pro audio section later on in the show.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, just a couple of aside things. What's been happening this week for me, I do have to share two really cool things.
Yeah.
The first one was I braved pulling a Apple Mac apart and managed to get it back together again. This is my old Mac that I used to use for doing titling, and the screen died on it a while ago. That was replaced by a professional, not me. And then when it came back a couple of weeks later, the battery died. So I said, okay, I'm going to try it myself. Never, ever, ever do that. Don't pull apart a Mac. That's all I'm going to say. But I succeeded. And the second one was a couple of days ago. Someone got all of my credit cards and my wallet and some cash that was in my wallet. And that's been a really crazy week for me. So if I look a little bit flustered today, that might be why. Anyway, moving right along.
Sorry to hear about that wallet thing. Truly, that's not going to be fun at all.
Here's the interesting thing. I've got it all on video. I've got front and rear dash cam of my car at the place where he managed to get my wallet, and I'll leave it at that. I can't share that footage until the police do their investigation. I want to make sure they've got every chance of convicting this guy, if at all possible.
I think that would be a great idea. Being able to track it down would be good. Yeah. As for the Mac thing, I used to do a regular New Year's Eve where I would take apart a computer every year on New Year's Eve, and quite a few of them were Macs. It is not a fun thing to do, and you have to have the right tools for it. So
the batteries are glued in.
Now they are. When I was doing it, those batteries were like you could remove it and replace it. But yeah, now it's just completely glued in. Who cares?
Yeah. Anyway, let's get started. So the Wirecast release notes, we want to quickly go through some of the stuff that's in there and talk about that. I've got a screen ready for you to go and put up.
Yep.
So, in fact, I might see if I can zoom that a little bit to make life easy for us all, especially us older people. So starting at the top, ISO recording and replay of NDI. That's really cool, really simple thing for them to add. I would think it should have been in there a long time ago, but that's really cool that it's there now. At some point in the future, I would love it if they could also record Rendezvous. It's something that was only recently discussed on our show a couple of weeks ago, but there's no reason why not. It's data, it's there. Let's go and make it easy to record to disk. Then moving on from that, some improvements, double clicking of the volume slider, make it easy to set the volume back to 0 dB. So that's in the Pro Audio dashboard. Improved name reporting of Facebook location pages.
Yeah, there's a few of these that are, I think we could probably jump over a lot of the stuff or just skip over it. But things like that double click on a volume slider. Interestingly, there's been a recent bug that's been reported in the forums that say, if you change a shot, the volume automatically resets to 0 anyway. So while I like the fact that there's a double click to change it to 0, you could also just change the shot and transition at the moment.
Yeah, yes and no. I think and we can really try this out very quickly in a minute, but I think that the reset only happens with the master volume, not the individual channel fader volume.
Correct.
Yes.
But if you change the master shot, that's the issue.
Correct. Absolutely. Looking on from there, what are the interesting ones? Crop controls, a reset button. That's helpful.
Yeah. The update to the new NDI. Look, like I'm going to be the first one to admit this is gold. So previously, NDI has always been a black box for a lot of people. New Tech, in their glorious glory of gloriness, have decided to remain having 3.8 through several different versions. In order to even see what version of 3.8 you do, you have to go into your regedit file, track it down, go into properties, see what level it is. Like, it's this whole convoluted thing of checking out a DLL preference file and what the update is on it.
Assuming you're running Windows.
Assuming you're running Windows. On a Mac, you're not even running New Tech stuff. So you're running Sierra things. So the fact that Wirecast is basically saying, hey, look, the latest version has the 3.8, the latest version of 3.8, great, awesome. Let's put it through its paces.
Okay, moving on from there, some fixes. Logging. I absolutely applaud adding heaps of logging. It's something that's going to make life easier, debugging some things. NDI sources from VLC. I would love the people from VLC to do something, to make a version of their product with NDI available for Macs. I'll say it. I've said it many times before. It's frustrating not having an NDI video player that we can use for playing out on a Mac. So that would be cool. Not a Wirecast thing, but anyway.
So you might have something in the future. I'm probably going to see about doing a section for us that's using something like Caspar CG to have and play video, because it can do NDI out and it does great quality video. So pay attention to that in the future.
Okay. Then we've got audio looping. I've seen that a little bit when NDI sources become unavailable, just having the last thing keep repeating itself. So that's a good little fix there. Graphic adapters. This one was one of mine when I was reporting that one. So a few changes causes indefinite hangs. Color space drop down is hidden when source switches. That one I don't know about. Canvas size.
Going back to that Black Magic NDI through Wirecast, that was one of my bugs that I reported. Thankfully, that's fixed. Basically, if you had NDI through Scan Converter or anything else through Scan Converter, Black Magic devices wouldn't show up at all in the NDI unless you would go and enable, hey, show duplicate sources, which ironically wouldn't work when you right-clicked on one of those the little plus in the things, which is how I often do. I don't go and click on that and have a window pop up and go through the menu. I use right-click right-click on the little tiny plus symbol to go to my stuff, and it just would never show up. So this fix, I'm appreciative for. That's great. They finally put that in.
So right-click on the plus. Okay, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it's one of the better ways for me, I think, to see that. Yeah, I like it much better. Here, let me switch to you so you can see what that does.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. So in here at the moment, if I normal click on the plus sign, I get up to this thing over here. Instead, if I right-click on there, straight down to make it easy to add whatever it is you want to add there.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's the primary way I use Wirecast. And that's coming from when they switched to this interface. That's always been there.
The one thing I really, really would love is if I want to create a new shot, see how I'm using templates down here. If I wanted to create a new shot using a template right now, I've got to go plus and create a blank shot and new shot. Or if I'm doing it with the right click, at least that's a little bit easier. Shot, new shot. And then, and only then, can I go here and change the template to whatever it might be.
Yeah. But those templates is a bane of both of our existence at the moment, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, moving right along. So next on our list, I was about to say something, changing canvas size. Is that one of yours?
No. The canvas size obviously has been an issue for me, and I'm grateful that they're fixing something. But I haven't seen a crash during a canvas size change. That's super weird. Yeah.
I mean, you've been talking about that for a long time. You want it to default to 1080p every time you create a new document. That would be really good. We don't live with 8-bit graphics anymore. Be good to catch up.
Yeah, kind of silencing there for a bit there, but yes. Yeah, I agree.
What else have we got here?
Replay, a lot of stuff for replay here. Custom presets, there's a little bit of a bug with the presets. They fixed that. Aside from that, we're talking LinkedIn improvements.
A lot of language stuff in there.
A lot of language stuff for Korean languages in here. Small little interface elements like that, the label swapping in the shadows. A lot
this
more.
One I think this is really good. So memory leaks while looping video. So people who might have a background loop running, slowly, time after time, it loops, and you're eventually going to run out of memory. So that's a really good one to have fixed. So.
Oh, for sure. That's if there was a memory leak there that they had not caught before. I'm glad to see that they're taking a look at that. Any bug, any video bug, that's 100% what would happen.
Yeah. QR code.
QR code is an interesting one. Obviously, our friend Jens has been pointing that out quite a lot, where the original QR implementation had it so that the code was inverted. And then they said they fixed it at one point, but when they fixed it, the QR code didn't change and the actual code itself was broken and it was still inverted. Then they went in and they fixed it so it would change, but then it was still inverted again. So now I can confirm, I have checked myself, it absolutely works. The code is proper, it's definitely enough spacing around it, it is not inverted, and it changes. So anybody who wants to use QR codes in Wirecast now can absolutely take advantage of this.
Yeah. What's this one? Tampered network traffic. What is tampered network traffic?
I honestly don't know. I was going to reach out to them and ask what this was. If this might be just NDI that maybe is getting interrupted or has changes to it.
It sounds like it's an API, part of the API for NDI to squish stuff into a certain amount of traffic, limiting your traffic to a...
Maybe. But interestingly, I'm glad you brought this one up. So you'll notice that we haven't been really doing YouTube chat today on the stream, both before and now, even though we've had some great interactions. Thank you to Grumpy Vlogger and Mad Kiwi for those. I apologize for that. But what I'm finding is the new tech NDI that's coming from Titler, after a certain period of time, not static, not specific, changes to just a black video, a black source. For me, that means that Wirecast has lost connection to this, and it's just constantly putting a black thing out, not transparent. So if we had it over top of the video that we're on right now, down at the bottom, where like between the two of us, where we normally have that, would just be a black box unless it was constantly active. So I'm going to apologize for it right now, but until that bug gets fixed, I think we'll probably not be able to use Titler Live. I am working on an alternative, though.
Yeah. This one over here is a big one for me. Remote rendezvous guests. So at the beginning of my show, I want my guests to hear the live audio of what it is I'm sending out to YouTube. I've got some music at the start, so they're hearing that, and then I'm fading that using the audio mixer. But they were still getting that at full volume. And the challenge is we're meant to be talking over the top of that. Even if I faded it down to 0, it was a problem before. So that's been fixed, and that's really good. Having said that, I found something new. If you press the mute button within the Wirecast dashboard, it's still audible via Rendezvous. So that's one more thing we've got to talk to them about in the near future.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I provide you just a single source, so that's not going to affect me.
Yeah. Restream, there was someone talking about that in the forum, so that's a good fix as well.
Yep. But I want to take a pause on this one again here. With Restream, replace the background with a transparent background does not work. This is not on Wirecast. This is on Restream because they have their background color. And anybody who wants to use Restream, the background color for that is set to like several layers deep of objects, and it's not like body or dot body or an ID of body. It's actually like you have to go and track down what the ID of that is and change it to transparent. On a regular page with nothing set, it's still transparent. On Restream, It's like several layers deep. You'll have to use custom CSS to make it transparent. Oh, you're muted. Did you mute yourself?
I'm talking again.
There you go. Now you're good.
I muted myself with a Apple wireless trackpad because my computer's a long way away, and so that I can cough, and I thought I unmuted. But anyway, the wonders of technology.
Indeed.
Web page source not animating. I think this was animated GIFs, if I remember correctly, and it was one of the things that I had reported some time ago. What else have we got?
That's super interesting because I've had animations in CSS and they've been fine. So
there's CSS is different. I think it was animated GIFs. And I know it was animated GIFs because, I'll tell you exactly what this was. I've got some bugs that were being done with ProRes. Yep. And those bugs were causing high CPU. And because of that, I said, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make that an animated GIF. So I converted it to an animated GIF and tried that, and it didn't work.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, the rest of the stuff is basically just Wirecast with MacBook Pro. Apparently, Wirecast 1, the touch bar was showing five layers, even though Wirecast 1 only is supposed to have a smaller quantity. And a couple little smaller things.
Yeah, so those are some of the top things that have been updated in this version of Wirecast. Anyone who's got a current support subscription agreement can get all of that stuff.
Yep.
Just a quick aside on that, I think everyone who has Wirecast should be keeping current on the support subscription agreement, not just for the bugs.
But for the fixes and stuff like that. Because if something happens,
for the fixes. No, forget about that. The value of getting the media library is worth $100 a year. For $100 a year, you get access to. You don't agree?
I think there's other assets out there, and I have yet to see quality content in that I would like to use in my streams. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means I haven't found it. And it could be just that I'm not looking for it just yet. There's other resources and other platforms out there that offer very similar media subscriptions that I know have a lot more content on them. And interestingly, based upon what I'm seeing in these release notes, if you're doing a show and you're using these subscribed licensed content, and you say stop doing your support subscription to Wirecast, you can no longer use that, right?
Which is as expected.
But if you're
you can use the existing stuff that's already downloaded.
Yep. No, that wouldn't. If you have to download every time you run Wirecast.
No. It does download and it keeps it in a cache in the buffer, and that's available on your hard drive. It's available.
But that's not. So the usage of that would be finicky, and I'd be very curious to know if there's any lawyers out there that want to have that conversation. But it's that cache file is your local copy to play. It's not your local legal copy. So
the wording that I've read in the parent company who provides that library is once you've downloaded, it's yours to continue to use.
Interesting. So that's interesting to know because Wirecast loads it as a cache. It doesn't load it in a cool. Let's keep it because if you want to add
it's on my computer on a Mac. It's in the documents directory. It's not in some hidden. Yeah, so
I didn't know that because if you add that same source as a different shot, you can't go and say, "Oh, cool, I want to take that I've already loaded and use it." You have to go and find it in the media library again and re-download it on a PC.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Okay, let's move on to our second topic.
Sure.
And press the magic button.
I am going to push the magic button. Hacking Rendezvous for 1080.
Oh, this is going to be some fun. So I've been a little bit of a hacker. Normally, traditionally, I play with Linux systems, and I also get into DJI drones and other stuff like that, playing around with the firmware. But Matt told me he wanted to hack Rendezvous, and I thought that was interesting. What did you want to do, Matt?
So I was occupied doing things, and I was like thinking to myself, it's just a web platform, and I know how this works because this is stuff that I do. I wonder if I could just force it to use 1080p. And so I sat down and wait, let's try it. And sure enough, you can get Rendezvous to 1080p video out. And I reached out to, and I said to them, hey, listen, you're doing this in your JavaScript file, you're limiting this to 720p. And they had responded and they said, we are, because we found 1080p with high volume of people and guests and joining this, it is detrimental, or it definitely has an impact on the quality of the product.
It would have been interesting, and I'm curious if you can ask the question, was that CPU bound or network bound in
both.
terms of the quality?
Oh, I know it's both. 100% I know it's both because of just the rudimentary testing that I've done and how I know how the tech works. It uses WebRTC technology, so clearly it's going to impact your network. But the CPU, when you're processing that much information, and what you're doing is you're capturing it from the screen, encoding it, and then sending it. So you're encoding basically twice as much information, and that is definitely more CPU intensive.
Can you pause there just for a minute? You said
Sure.
You're capturing it from the screen. You're talking about each guest is capturing from the screen?
So I'm going to get a little technical here. So for anybody who wants to blank out and grab a coffee, please do so, but come back. How a lot of these software and how a lot of this stuff works is you request a video camera, you take that information and you draw it onto what's known as a canvas element. Then, because that's going to be your display, your canvas, you can manipulate it, you can add things to it, you can take away, you can draw additional stuff to it. So you're taking a video source, you're taking that data, and you're putting it onto a canvas. And then what you're doing is you're reading that canvas as image data. And then you're taking that image data and you're sending that over WebRTC. There are ways of getting it so you're not doing that by reading multiple data streams at the same time, but it is more efficient to do it as just, here's a canvas that I can manipulate and control, because that can then be saved as essentially what is a JPEG.
So that's the person sending?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, the person receiving at the Wirecast end, in terms of being CPU bound, that
you're processing more video, more data on a regular basis per second.
Yeah, but you're not running like multiple little web pages virtually and rendering to the web page and then screen capturing that logically and virtually. Yeah.
It is receiving that image data as image data on that end, and then just sequentially putting that up multiple times. That's how you can create live video for that. You basically set it as a source, it reads it as images, and again, it just presents it and writes that out as a video. Or writes it out like MJPEG, as an example. MJPEG's like precursor to a lot of this tech.
So it shouldn't theoretically be CPU bound at the Wirecast end. There will be extra load, but not something that's going to be a bottleneck.
Correct. The bottleneck comes down to, if you have 5 guests and each of them is setting 1080p, I might have 100 megabit down, and I'm not going to have an issue with that. The issue is that for every person connected, they need to send to every other person. So if you're sending 1080p video signal to, say, for instance, you to me, well, that's fine. But now if I'm going to join on another computer, right, you're now sending 1080p to me and another computer. And if you have another guest, you then have to send it to them as well on top of what you're already doing. There's no centralized server. So that means that every person connected...
And there is an ability to use, I think it was a turn server?
Correct. There are turn servers that you can use for this. Wirecast is not implementing that. There's a massive cost, and I'm not saying that they should. There's a massive cost to it. There is a turn server in place to do the initial communication, but not the data distribution.
Yeah. So I think that would be a really, for me, I've got my low bandwidth link. Even before we get to 1080p, I would love it if I could configure and turn on a turn server so that I send out one set of data and it distributes it to multiple guests. That would be absolutely awesome.
So the opposite way as well. That turn server should also send to each guest what is getting received from each guest.
Correct.
But that means that turn server needs to have a crud of ton of bandwidth.
And I've got servers that I can do that with, that I've got access to. But I need the ability to configure that in Wirecast, especially for people in Australia, because we live in a third world country with our wonderful internet.
Honestly, this could be something that Telestream charges
could charge for. Absolutely.
Hey, you want to run a turn server to run 1080p video with more than 3 people? Great. Here's a product, here's a service to do that. That's included in the transcriptions and all this stuff. Great, yeah. that's definitely a potential solution. Another way of doing this is, remember how I said you could capture that canvas and send that as an image data? Well, what you can also do is you can say, great, I'm going to take that same data and I'm going to write a second canvas, but I'm going to do that smaller. And I'm going to do that at, say, 480 or 320. And now I can say, capture my entire screen or my entire video source and send it to the person who's organizing it. But send the smaller image to everybody else, right? Because you can dictate where you send certain information. So now you can say, I'm only going to send 1080p to the main person and 320 or 480 to each other person, which is a lot less bandwidth. And that's absolutely possible. Because if you're as a guest, you're not having full resolution anyway. So there's no reason to get it.
Yeah. Just a quick little aside, I noticed that Nightbot has been suspending Mad Kiwi. I don't know what he did today, but he must have done something bad.
That's interesting.
I'll have to spank Nightbot later.
So here's a question. We have a little bit of time before our next thing. Did you want me to run through how to do
Let's
this? Or do you want to
that
skip
live
it?
demo. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So what we've done and what I've got here, let me switch over actually to that because it's going to be a bit more technical. So I have set up on a computer over here. You'll see the little tiny video in the top right-hand corner. I've enlarged the screen so you can kind of see this as well. What I've done is I've got our rendezvous session currently up for the live view. Now, the way to do this is have your video set to something that is not your primary output. I'm just using the integrated webcam. It's a terrible camera. Yeah, Dell, I hate you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push F12 or open up my developer console tools. Now,
we're still looking at us, aren't we?
Yes, we are, because I didn't push switch. Oh my God, Matthew. You are a terrible person. Also, it seems that my NDI has completely frozen from that computer. So I'm going to give it a quick refresh. Let's do that. Right? Come on.
So this is interesting. You mentioned before the NDI issue with Titler. I wonder if it's related to the same issue.
I don't know. It could be. So this isn't even like regular. This is the. This is something else completely. Select that. Yeah, that should be able to just reconnect. There we go. Right? Come on. Huh. It's not liking it. So let me try. And that's on a hardline gigabit network, too.
No Wi-Fi involved.
No Wi-Fi involved at all. Come on. Well, I might not be able to do this on this one. Oh, you know what I can do? Yeah, I might be able to do it there. I'm going to be probably having to turn my head a bit for this, but I can definitely take a look at doing it in a different way here.
This is really, really cool. So I'll let you go and play with your stuff and get it working, but I'll briefly say, for anyone who is familiar with debugging web pages and debugging JavaScript, basically the intent is to get the JavaScript from the rendezvous server, put in a breakpoint, and then to tweak it a little bit. So where it says 720 by default, you basically do, I'm sorry, Dave, you can't do that. You're going to be doing 1080 in the middle of the execution of that. So let's have a look at this.
Yeah, so I've got it now. Let's see if this is actually.
Okay. Let's rewind. Okay, let's start again.
So, by the way, Telestream, that echo is because you automatically brought in the audio for a video source. So, thanks for that. Sorry for the people in chat. My apologies. Yes. So, basically the console, the window that you see here, if you push F12 or Command Option I on a Mac, and let's actually undo a lot of this stuff here, devices. What you can do is select the JavaScript app here, and then Pretty Print. So you want to be selecting this Pretty Print with this file selected. So what this does is it uncompresses all of that content, or uncompresses all of that code. And now, luckily, I've gone through all of this code, or all of these thousands of lines, by simply pushing and searching for 1280. So you're going to see this kind of grouping of information or statistics here that basically say, hey, what's the height and width that you want to have? Now you're going to see it says max, ideal, and min, right? So at this line 503 through 523, this information exists. You want to stop it at 524 before it gets to the next stage here. Because what's going to end up happening is you're basically wanting to stop and change this information when it gets there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my camera and I'm going to change my camera to a NewTek video. And what that's going to do is it's going to stop right here, right, where I told it to. And now I can actually see all the information that's associated to all this data. So if I open up the closure, which is just a fancy way of saying, like, great, this is the closure of where this information is, and I'm going to say the constraints, video, and you're going to see the same information here that you saw up here. And I'm going to change the height to 1080. That's ideal. The min and the max is also going to be 1080. For the width, 1920, 1920, 1920. So now, once that's changed, I'm going to push play. And what it's going to do, I can close this guy down here by pushing the X. Now, this video up here, if it was actually correctly showing on Scan Converter, come on, Scan Converter, open. Which it is not. Prime Windows, Streamer, no. Scan Converter's crashed on the computer. Nice.
Okay.
Anyway.
So the simple message here, you're interrupting the flow of the JavaScript code. You're getting in there and saying, stop right there. And when you get to that point, you're tweaking the bit that says this is the resolution. Why
Correct.
is this important? Because at the moment, it's not configurable in Wirecast. Why is it important even more than that? It's a proof of concept for us to go and validate that certainly on our network and our computer hardware, and we tested this the other day, that it looks absolutely awesome. The video quality of what you see, comparing the 1080p versus the 720, it's absolutely that much better. The question is, in the future, Wirecast, can you please make this configurable in the user interface so that the person hosting the Wirecast session can say, actually, I would like Matthew Potter, because I know he's got a really fast internet service. I want him to be 1080p. But that person over there, Greg, he's got a slower internet. I'd like him to stay at 720. We absolutely need that in the user interface. One other thing, if anyone's interested in seeing the difference between the two video qualities, we'll make available a link to our testing video. It's an unlisted video at the moment, but if anyone wants to see the difference, just drop us an email.
Yeah.
So we should leave it there. Is there anything else you want to quickly wrap up on that topic?
Not really. Essentially, we'll post the video if we need to, or yeah, it's just quality is there.
Okay. Moving on to our next topic, and we got two left. The next one is about bandwidth spikes, and I wanted to briefly cover this. So on my computer, I've got set up a Wirecast copy, and it's got a template that's vaguely from this show. At the moment, I'm going to stream this out to a fake server. So I've set up my own little mini YouTube on another computer. It's an RTMP receiving device. What I'm going to do is go to output statistics. So over here, we've got our RTMP server, bitrate, RTMP queue size. We'll get rid of that and we can leave that in. So what do we know about this? We know that when we do transition changes, that the bandwidth spikes up. Now, I haven't got much in here. I should probably put myself in. Let's just quickly do that now. A new shot with a video capture. And it's not quite the right size. Let's scale it to fit. Okay, so there's my video source. Let's move this over a little bit so that we can get this over to the side. Now, here's the message. I've just spiked up to 8 megabits per second, 9 megabits per second, and then it's now going to, what's it going to do? Is it going to stay there? What have I got it set up as? Output settings. I've got it set to 4 megabits per second. So for some reason, even though I've got it set to, there we go, it's coming down now to 4 megabits per second. Here's the problem and here's the challenge. My internet can't handle 8 megabits per second. I didn't ask it to send 8 megabits per second. Whenever you're using the Apple H.264 encoder, it does not honor the requested setting. And in fact, sometimes it uses double the requested bandwidth. That's the problem. So what is the solution to this? There's two things. Firstly, Wirecast needs to do a quick code change that's going to make this work really, really well. At the moment, they're saying, here's our requested throughput. But there's another setting in the Apple library, and I've provided a copy of the API to Telestream, where it allows you to set an absolute max, a ceiling for the amount of bandwidth that you are going to be generating using the Apple H.264 encoder. My understanding is that currently Wirecast is not using that absolute maximum value. If it was using it, we wouldn't get to 8 megabits per second and we wouldn't have streams dropping out when using the Apple encoder. To be fair, other people have the same problem. So OBS has exactly the same problem. This was replicated by Telestream and they said, you know, we're going to see if the other products have the same problem, and they did. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't fix it, right? The fact that there's a problem there, it still needs to get looked at, still needs to get fixed. Until then, what is the workaround? Well, it's actually quite simple. Let me get over here. Oops, where's my monitors? They've disappeared. There we go. So instead of using cut transitions, the simple answer is to use either smooth or cross dissolve transitions. So if I go down here at the moment and let's set it to cross dissolve, and I'll go from that to that. Now let's have a look. Oops, we've opened a hole in time and space. There we go. Now, I didn't have a big bandwidth spike there. In fact, it went down because it's now a static shot. Let's go back to me, and we'll do that as a cross dissolve again. Now, it'll peak up. Oh, that's interesting. Did I not hit the right button? Let's try it one more time.
No, you did. It's just the cross dissolve should be slower if you're going to be doing what you're looking to do.
Switch transition speed. Let's try that one more time. Let's put it on slow. And we'll go to here. Okay, our statistics, that's dropped because it's a static image now. We'll go back to a live camera. You were saying, Matthew?
It's the lower peak.
It's a lower peak.
Yeah, it's essentially what it comes down to is the image replacement. You're still sending a lot of data.
I'm still sending a lot of data, but here's the interesting thing. I have tested this before in previous versions of Wirecast, and it did not cause me problems. On my internet link, if I increased with that higher peak, it would absolutely kill me.
Well, you could always move to Canada.
Okay, I'm going to try one more thing because I don't actually use the cross dissolve. I actually use smooth, but yeah, I know you don't like it. I deliberately did cross dissolve so you wouldn't complain. But let me do that anyway.
I like smooth for what it is. I do. It's just I don't think that they need to default to smooth. It messes people up.
Okay, so let's do it again. Let's give it one more go. That is interesting. In previous versions of Wirecast, doing a smooth transition instead of a cut transition meant that you wouldn't peak your bandwidth that high. Now, granted, I deliberately set this. I'm just going to pause this. What do we got for time? I got a couple of minutes. So I'm going to pause that. I'm going to go over here, output settings, and I'll change this to 720p30. I'll set it down to what I normally use for my own stream. We'll activate that again. Output, show statistics. Push this over here. Need to reactivate this. Okay, let's click on bitrate. So we're at 1.25 megabits per second. Now let's see what happens. Smooth transition. Should just go down because it's going to a static image. And there it goes down. Let's go back to a live camera.
Grumpy Vlogger says he hears the Philippines has great internet if you want.
Yeah, it does. Here's the thing. Right now, 1.25 megabits per second, and it peaked up to 3. So it's using double the amount of bandwidth. And it didn't do that on previous versions of Wirecast with my testing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do my regular show. So this version of Wirecast at the moment, I think is going to be unusable for me. So I'll have to do further testing and potentially go back to the previous one. I wasn't expecting that outcome, but I'm glad we looked at it, glad that we tested it.
So am I. That's going to be super interesting. And I'm glad we're doing the show from my location today, even though I'm messing up a couple of times already today. Because if that happened mid-show, that's an issue.
I could not have broadcasted today from my location, period. Even with Telstra Internet not misbehaving.
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be worth you sending a message out to the Telestream team and saying, initial testing for this means that it's the opposite of what should happen.
And let me just say one other thing. This is a really important point to note. The official response from Telestream is, don't use Apple H.264, use X.264. While technically speaking, that is correct. If you're switching between camera A and camera B without wildly complex shots with multiple layers and bugs and titles, and if you've got a really simple setup, maybe you just got 2 cameras or 3 cameras in a church or something like that, that's going to work for you. But for anyone who's doing any kind of semi-professional compositing of any decent complexity, you cannot use Apple H4. You cannot use X264. You can't do either. So we're stuck.
Yeah. At least on a Mac you are.
At least on a Mac.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
Well, no, it's on Windows as well. Like I'm not streaming or recording, and I'm still at 55% right now on my CPU. And I shouldn't hit anything on my CPU right now. I should be at like 30 or 20.
And you're doing offloading of the encoding, which, yeah. Okay. So let's pause that there. And we've got one last topic, USB mixer audio. There are 2 things that I want to do here on this topic. The first one is Could you get your Wirecast screen up rather than mine? Can we do mine? I'd need to have rendezvous guests come in or Skype guests come in here. Here's what I want to do. I just want to have a look at your configuration for your layer 5 for the audio.
Sure.
And for the separate shots as they appear in a few of the other layers.
I absolutely can. Let me put you on screen with you in it, and you tell me what you want to see.
Okay. There we go. So I'm going to move to the side a little bit. So let's first of all have a look at the items in that particular shot there.
Sure.
So you can see that we've got, and I can't see this clearly, so my apologies. We've got a microphone source for Matthew, which is coming from his mixing desk. We've got a copy of me somewhere there with the video probably turned off and just the audio. Am I correct?
You are correct. In fact, let me just make it so it's a bit more bizarre here. Let's do this one. Why can't I select you, do. There we go. Perfect. And now select it. So now it's not like this weird double U type thing. Yep. So yes, we have your audio, my audio, right? And now the YouTube chat was initially a setting or a placeholder because I have to have the NDI shot behind it due to the fact that Rendezvous triggers an activate upon an NDI signal going forward. So I don't want the YouTube chat to like instantly pop up on everything. So that's just a cheat there. We have a Logitech camera, which is, hey, that's the background, but there's no audio to that at all. And then the absolute background is just a gray layer that I have over top of that. So it's a.
And I want to quickly comment on that. That's really, really smart and something that I haven't seen or thought about before. If you've got your background and you want to have, let's say, a rendezvous guest in the audio layer, but you don't want them visible, rather than forgetting to go and turn off the video, you can just put them behind this absolute background. Really cool, simple hack.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So that's the way I've set my audio up. And then for all the other layers, I don't have audio activated, right? So all of these other ones I have gone through and I've manually removed any audio sources from. Now, that is why we had the issue earlier when I had said, right-click, video capture, grab from the Decklink 3, which is the other computer. By default, the audio came in on Decklink 3, and I'm sending audio out on Decklink 4, which just happens to be the video switcher, which gave me that feedback of audio. So I'm sorry for that. I should have gone through when I added this source, and I should have removed that there in order to fix that issue. So that was what.
But I tell you, I'll briefly talk to that. What I would absolutely love is a mute button at the layer level. Right? For me, I only ever have audio on layer 5, and I encourage everyone using Wirecast to do the same. You don't need audio in any other layer for 99% of your stuff. Maybe for some title stuff, if you want to have it boing when something pops onto the screen, you might want to do that. But for everything else, you don't need it. Keep it down the bottom. That way, when you switch shots and you go from Greg to Matthew.
Are you wanting me to do that?
Yeah, and you go from Greg to Matthew. If we didn't do this, you couldn't hear me right now.
Correct.
Because by default, out of the box, the rendezvous audio is... by default, out of the box, the rendezvous audio is linked to the video shot. So when you change shots, you don't want people to be muted. Put it on layer 5, and please, Telestream, give ability to mute audio at the layer level. That would be absolutely fabulous.
Or please, and can I just say, instead of doing it so that we're muting on a level, let me set a global audio interface as everything goes out through and the mixer doesn't change. I should be able to say all my audio is from here and here. That's it. There's no layer associated to it. If I input a new shot that has audio, doesn't matter. I need to specifically add audio into an audio master control board, which they already have. If I push Control U on my computer,
Yeah.
an audio mixer shows up.
Could I give you one last thought? Should there be an input layer?
What do you mean an input layer? Sorry, I'm not clear.
A layer that we could call the input layer, where here is the Rendezvous input, and you can configure that any way you want, and you can reuse that anywhere. So Greg from Rendezvous, my camera right now, I've got a shot that can be reused elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then I've got another Greg, which is an audio Greg, which can be reused elsewhere.
We have that though, don't we? That's how it works.
No, so that's an asset manager as opposed to an input layer. So just imagine, let me give you the idea. You've got can you go to my full screen again?
I absolutely can.
So, no, sorry, I meant me as in a person, not my computer. The Greg single shot. So we've got that little video bug that just popped in there. So that plus my camera, maybe that could be a reusable asset, the combination of those two, with the audio turned off, and then that can be reused elsewhere. That would be cool.
So it's interesting that you say that, because there is a competition software that does specifically that. You can create a scene, and that scene is then also a potential for being a source. This has been a request. This is a feature request that Wirecast does have to do. At the moment, it's technically impossible, but you can do some interesting stuff with playlists. But it's not to the same level. So, yes, I do see what you're saying now. A grouping of assets and creating a source collection, maybe would be a proper way of saying it. Or source group.
Yeah. Reusable source.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting away from ourselves here. We had one more.
Yeah. One more for the Skype thing.
Yeah.
So we do have Skype open, but I'm not going to open it now. But I wanted to quickly touch base here for the Skype. I've done a lot of stuff back and forth with NDI and Skype and how it handles it. We've mentioned it in the past before, but there's been somebody in the forum that has obviously been asking about this as well. If you're using Skype to bring people in remotely, any guest in Skype that you're bringing in has the audio for all of those guests. Meaning if you have yourself and 4 other people, which means a 5-person Skype conversation, all 4 of the external people are in everybody else's audio input. Meaning if you insert, like I just did for the camera feed here, if you insert one of the NDI sources for that, it will contain all of the other people's audio. If you insert a second source into that, for instance, the other person, you need to disable that second person's audio in that shot. Same thing for the third and the fourth. If you keep all the audio sources from every one of those NDI inputs, there can be flanging, there can be echoing, there can absolutely be compound audio on everyone. It would be the equivalent of you passing your microphone with another microphone, with another microphone, with another microphone for 4 people. And that's going to be extremely loud and echoey. Your audio comes in separately. Your audio will still come in as a potential saying NDI Skype local, not embedded in everybody else's signal. This is across the board. This is not Telestream or Wirecast. This is through Skype. This is absolutely
and Skype is mixing the audio. It's on them. The other
Correct.
weird thing is that the audio from Skype very often comes in one channel rather than 2.
Except for this case. If you're only doing one person, I believe if you're only doing one person, it only comes in with the left channel, and you need to manually select right and left. If you're doing more than one and it's doing a mix down, I believe the last I tested, it was absolutely doing left and right. It was doing a stereo mix down.
Yeah. So let's leave the Skypey thing there for a minute. Let's go and bring up my Wirecast copy again and bring up the USB mixer. And let me add a local microphone as a source. So, oops, helps if I send that live. Try again. Try one more time. Enter. Thank you. There we go. So we've got my microphone live.
Sorry,
so,
and hold on for a second there. Sinan, can you clarify what you mean there? I see you have a comment. Yes, but what if they need to talk suddenly? So all the audio is coming in at the same time. It's like if they need to talk suddenly, then they can talk instantly. It's always available no matter what shot is being brought in.
Correct. Let me just explain it again. What I said a moment ago about having your audio only on layer 5. You add one Skype audio on layer 5 and you leave that always turned on. On layer 5 and on my dashboard at the moment, can you send my computer live? Oops. Can you move me out of the way?
I don't know. Pretty complex.
There we go. So this is the only shot with audio. And over here, you're going to have all of your Skype faces of all of your guests in 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shots, whatever you're going to do. But your audio for your Skype guests is going to be in one place, 1 shot. And hypothetically, here is Skype audio. Let's remove that one for the purpose of what we're talking about. There's your Skype audio. You would put it there. Okay, now you leave that on all the time. All of your Skype guests can then talk all the time. There's no problem with that. And if you change shots from here to here to here, that's fine. You can change what's on the screen, but that audio shot is always going to be live. Does that make sense? I hope that's clarified for you.
And not only that, but you'll need to make sure that any shot that they are included in that is not the bottom shot, the audio needs to be removed.
Yes. And let's quickly cover that. How do you remove audio from a shot? A couple of ways. Over here, you could click the speaker button next to that particular input if that was your Skype user. Then there's another one where you can change audio and untick something. Sometimes that works. I haven't found that always works. Another way, and this was helpful to me ages ago, is to go into the channel mapping and literally turn them off at that layer. That's if you've got the pro version. Why is that important? I had to do that for a previous issue in Wirecast, and that solved the problem for me doing it that way. Lots of options there. You can also turn the volume down, of course, set that to 0. So those are all different ways of muting audio if you're not in layer 5.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
So by layer 5, can you just showcase the fact that there is 5 different layers on here? It's not really clear. I think that's the unclear. Layer 5 is the lowest bottom layer at the bottom of the window here.
Correct. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I call it layer 5. That's just me.
I think that's actually what it is called in, like, if you reduce the size even further or collapse it, it says it's layer 5.
Master layer 5. Yes. Okay. So please type in the chat if that wasn't perfectly clear. But in the meantime, let me go over here. And this is our Pro USB mixer. It's in the Pro version only. Couple of things. Firstly, the delay. This is where you can set the delay on that particular microphone and that input source. Why do you want to do that? For me, my microphone and my camera are 2 individual devices connected to the computer, and my microphone and my camera don't get the data there at the same time. So the workaround to that, I've got to delay my audio coming into Wirecast to match up with the image. So
on that, with the delay, I want to make a public declaration. We made a mistake. 2 episodes back, we had said, hey, there's no way to put a delay on Rendezvous. There is through this master controller. There isn't on the shot properties, which is normally available for video and audio content and editing, but you can do it through here. And we had said it's not available. I even submitted a bug for it. It is through this panel. So Rendezvous can have audio delays.
Yep, and we're using it now. So hopefully my microphone and my mouth are perfectly synchronized. But how do you actually know how much delay? Simple answer, you go and you record some video and you clap in front of the microphone or do something that's going to generate a visual and an audio trigger, have a look at that in a video editor, count how many frames and workout there is between the two of them, do some math and convert that to your delay. That is how you get yourself looking absolutely perfectly in sync. Next thing, I haven't seen this before in the USB mixer. I don't recall it being stereo left or right, but yeah, that's something I think that's new. Over here, so these are some of the things that we've got as effects that you can use. So let's have a look at those one by one. If you want to add a delay, and this effect over here, you can turn it on and off by clicking at that point there and configure it over here. Now, I think this is more echoing than delay. You played with that last week, Matthew. Can you turn on some delay on me?
I did, and that is definitely an echo. We had instantly people saying, hey, there's a problem with the echo. Why is it echoing? It shouldn't be echoing. That delay is an effect.
Yeah. Yes, correct. So that one, if you want something that's going to sound echoey, that's the way you do it. And here's the other comment that I would have here. Set up 2 shots at the bottom in your layer 5, one with the effect turned on, one with the effect turned off. So you don't want to be going to your USB mixer in the middle of a broadcast and playing around with that. Set it up in advance, and to activate your delay, you just activate that shot. Second effect, let's just quickly go in, dynamics. This is one that I use every single time that I use Wirecast. It is, I believe, an essential one if you don't have an outboard mixer. My normal settings that I use, and this is what works for me in this particular room, I set my limiter down to -1 and I set my gate threshold to 35. Those are my 2 numbers that seem to work best with a little bit of testing. What do? The gate threshold, it says if the room is silent, i.e. I'm not talking, but you get that little bit of hiss and noise in the background, the room noise, it will, when the volume goes below -35 decibels, it will just cut the channel. So that makes it a quieter, cleaner room when you're not talking or in between words and phrases. The other one, the limiter, that's just making sure your audio kind of sits around the same place and doesn't go beyond that. I'd love to have a compressor in there as well, but we don't. So those are the 2 things that I use in Dynamics and the way I set that up.
I believe we do have a compressor in there, actually.
Where?
So if you go into the dynamics there, the threshold ratio, attack and release is your compression.
Okay.
That's the compression.
Okay, I'll have to go and play around with that and understand that a little bit more at another point, but I didn't realize that, and something I can look at another day, but I don't want to learn on the fly now. Let me go to a couple of other must-haves. You can do a limiter separate from the dynamics, so that's instead of using that one with all of the other nerd knobs. Oops, wrong one. If you just want the limiter, there it is over there. And the other one, if you've got, again, some noise in a room and you want to try and eliminate that, you can turn that feature on and it'll try and get rid of that. I actually do use that when I'm doing my Osby-Drone broadcast, and it does work reasonably well. So that is what works for me. I will highlight that different rooms, different microphones, different environments and all of that kind of thing, you'll need to work out what works for you. But those are my magic settings anyway. Any comments from you on a few of those, Matty?
Not really. I think you covered them great. For me, personally, I don't use them. I have a hardware console that actually I've built from the ground up, including gates, limiters, threshold, the compression, as well as a gating for it. So I've spent a lot of money in that thing. I'd like to use it, but I wish I knew this was here beforehand, because I've spent a lot of times to do that. Quick tip on setting up that gate threshold, which I do recommend you using, is have your room ambient, watch your VVU meter, and then make the adjustment and have it so that it's about 3 dB above where it cuts off for ambient room. That means you can have an air conditioning unit. That means you can have a little bit of background noise. And that's how you set that up properly. And then you can adjust everything else. So just as a quick tip for that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've gone a little bit over our 1 hour show today. I do want to quickly switch my screen to have a look at the chat room and see if there's anything that people are saying that we need to respond to, but I've accidentally closed the window. Is there anything you can see there, Matthew?
Just Sinan, and I apologize for probably butchering that name. I'm sorry. That's Canadian in me being sorry, but I actually am sorry. Saying they're going to try it out, see if it works, and they'll get back to us on it. Please comment down below. Let us know if it worked in this video. Other than that, Ken had to leave, as he does.
Yes, Ken has a great show, and encourage those Sinan. Go and have a look at Ken Heron's show. He's on a little bit later today, and it's an incredible show. He is an absolute professional in terms of his audio particularly. He does it outboard the same way that you do, Matt. He's a radio presenter by trade, and he's great content. How do I get rid of my dogs barking? Well, you live in America, so you have a 12 gauge, I'm sure.
Oh. No, I do. No, I'm a dog person. I do not agree with that. How do you eliminate the dogs barking? Pig ear. Give them the treat. Give them the toy. Give them one each, and then they'll just shut up and sit down and chew on that for a few hours. That's what I would recommend.
Just to be clear, I don't really advocate a 12 gauge. I like dogs as well.
Cool.
Anyway, what else have we got here? So put all the video on layer 2 and disable all audio. Correct. Put all of the audio in one shot to layer 5. Doesn't have to be in layer 2, but yeah.
Whatever shot you want.
Yep.
And then just make sure you don't even have to do like import all the video. Click on that little tiny cog and just go through and select only the one video, only the one layer. You don't need to select all the video on channel 5, on layer 5. You only need one of those audio inputs and then your audio input. That's it.
In fact, in my regular weekly show, the Oswald Wren Show, I have one audio shot, which has got myself and my co-host, John Morrison, plus all other digital inputs. And then I've got a separate shot, which also brings in the guest. So if the guest, I want to mute them, I just go to the shot with me and John, and vice versa. If I want to mute John, I've got another shot for that. So that's how to do that.
Nice. Yeah, for me, you did see 2 down there. One is just the background. One is just the background with our audio. I don't like losing a complete layer just for audio. So I do use that one for any of the background elements.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Cool.
There's a question from Grumpy. Can I shoot Nightbot? Yes, you can. You've got your 12 gun. You're in it. 12 gauge. You're in America. Anyway, I'll chat to a couple of people if they want to jump into Discord straight after the show. The Discord link was posted by Nightbot earlier on in the channel.
Yep.
If not, I'll see you next time. Matthew, thanks as always. Have a great day.
You as well. Have a great one. And everybody else, enjoy the music, at least until Greg cuts you off.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.